bin zurück mit
Let me make a list. Cape.
Okay, I know. Okay, so here's another thing I do want to talk about. So for people that have followed along on the other podcasts, you know, I've got this secret, and I could talk more at length about it since my mom won't be listening to this one. And she's convinced that I'm going to die of avian flu. But now, like I'm telling you, you better watch out for monkeypox. The pigeons upstairs. And I want your advice. I want your thoughts on it because, like I said, I do tend to I find that, and it's interesting, that's what we're talking about, astrology. I do tend to find that a lot of the people I consider advisors are what are clumped together in different kind of like, there's a group of Capricorns, there's a group of Aries, and they're quite different from me in different ways. Capricorns tend to be a lot more logical than me. Like I'm shoot from the hip, my heart's on my sleeve. I definitely react to everything in life from a purely my heart, right? Which is not always, it's always an emotional reaction. Whereas like Megan, my best friend, she's a Capricorn. She's more logical, like, okay, well, just hold up, just like assess everything. And I need that, you know, and on the flip side, like I being a Cancer sign, I can be passive and too forgiving and too empathetic. And why it's good that my bestest friends always tend to be Aries because they're that complete like fire. Like, don't take that shit. Don't, you know, like, no, that's not cool. You need to fight. You need to, where I'm just like, no, I can't anymore. Like, I'm beaten down. They're just like, no. But I need that in life, right? I think that we all kind of do.
Yeah, we all need balance. We all need different perspectives and multiple angles to look at the same situation.
So which is why I value your opinion and why I want it, or your insights on it. So um I've for years I always keep big watering things up there, big urns. Urns are they're just big giant clay pots. They're supposed to be planter pots, but they're not, you know, and I put water up there for a lot of animals because it gets hot here. It's Bangkok. It gets really, really hot. And I change it out every day. And I started noticing that I was getting like a lot of older ones or young ones just born, or sometimes ones that were like special needs pigeons, right? I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. So I started feeling bad and thinking, okay, they must have trouble because they're older getting food. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to start feeding the older, the ones that need the extra help. Became a thing, like, and this has been going on for several months. And I have sick birds come to me and things like that. I told you that one time, like a bird came and just landed in front of me, and I said, "Do you need help?" And I said, "If you need help, come to me." And I put my hand down, and the bird walked into my hand. Right? I don't know if I told you or Noosh, but it was crazy. I've had birds land on me, and so right now I have a bird that has something akin to Parkinson's. It's a pigeon, and it's got Parkinson's, and it has a hard time controlling its mobility. So it can't get food sometimes because it can't control its neck. And then once it sometimes it's like violently grabs something, it can get a piece of food in its mouth, but then it's having a hard time swallowing. Its neck goes back 180 degrees. It's struggling. And I think, oh man, if you put food out, all the other birds that are able, they all eat the food and he's going to die, right? So I've housed him. He's in a cage. He's getting housed. And we've worked out a way that I can hold his neck down and he can get food and he can eat food. So he eats well. And I go check on him several times a day to do that. Am I playing God? Am I prolonging, like, is he living a miserable life having this issue? And here's the thing. At first, I thought that because I saw a lot of different pigeons and I've learned a lot of pigeons about pigeons, like just doing the feedings, right? And taking care of them when they're sick while I'm up there in the garden. But like I started seeing some pigeons walking around in a circle. I looked it up and it said they have some kind of virus. And it causes a neurological disorder and they usually will die in a week. So I thought this is the same thing that's going on with this pigeon. So I just thought it's going to die. The reason I take them in when they're near death is like, I don't want them to be eaten alive. Like that's a horrible way to die, in my opinion. So it's like, there's only so much I can do. I can't take you to a vet. They won't treat you. I can't take you to like wild animal stuff because you're not wild animal enough. Like, so it's you and me, and I've got whatever tools that I can get, and like whatever I can get on the internet, like vitamins, electrolytes, whatever I'll do. But aside from that, there's not. Well, I did do that tracheotomy though, too. That was kind of hardcore, and I'm proud of myself for that. But there's only so much I can do. This bird is eating well, and for this one, it might not be the virus. It might just be like a neurological disorder because it doesn't seem to be sick from any other thing like the other ones are. And now I'm like, am I playing God? Because he probably would have died from starvation because of his condition. And now I'm just prolonging him being alive with this condition. Am I being cruel? And
So,
you know what? And it's a struggle, I know, for you because I know how much you love and dig animals. I know it's a struggle for you, but that's why I want to hear what your thoughts are on it.
so you've got two options. You could either take some action or not take some action. Could you, as a person, not take any action and be content with the outcome?
No.
There you go then.
Okay. He's in a cage because I don't want him eaten alive. And other birds are mean to him because they know he's weak, so he gets pecked on. But if I leave him in there to die, and okay, I put food in front of him, but he can't get it because he can't control it. That's cruel too. But me and him have worked out a system, and he trusts me where I can just hold his head down, and he could swallow, and he could eat normally. And it's like, if I'm willing to keep continuing doing this with him, is that cruel?
Well, it sounds like he's not in pain.
I don't know. Like it's because I don't speak. This is why I want to speak pigeon.
Yeah, but you can tell if
Yeah, yeah,
you'd see some signs of pain, even if it was just in the eyes. So
yeah,
clearly he's not in pain, and this is the best way he can live his life.
yeah. It
How could
sucks,
how
man.
could it be better? It couldn't, right?
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, it was a struggle for me this morning. Like that's why I left you a message. I'm like, am I playing God? Like, am I trying to keep him alive for me? You know, and I don't think necessarily it's like I feel like I'm trying to do the best thing that I can, but I know that a lot of other people too struggle with similar things in a different light as well.
Yeah,
People like that have family members that go into comas or
yeah,
are not quite themselves and they're young and they keep them alive, you know?
yeah. I think that would be a bigger question. I think on the scale of a pigeon being comfortable for the last however long, week, 2 weeks of its life, I think you're doing the right thing.
But he could go on to live forever. I mean, if he doesn't have a virus, I mean, he can live quite a long life.
Yeah, so that's quite a commitment you have there.
I mean, what's another one to add to this menagerie? Like,
Yeah,
I mean, like, you've got this squirrel with like just a picky food. It's got picky food issues. A turtle that likes to sleep inside on a hot water bottle with blankets tucked in every night. Like I don't get like normal. Like every single rescue animal here is freaking weirdo. Like with like weird issues. Like there's not one that doesn't have like an issue. It's just different degrees of it. You've never had a cat.
No, never had a cat. Just dogs.
What's your opinion on cats?
I think they are less loyal than dogs. I think they are very clever. I think they can be quite manipulative.
Yes.
um,
I agree with all those statements, having cats.
yeah, but I wouldn't rule out getting a cat.
It's funny because I was never a cat person growing up. Like my parents always had dogs and birds. We'd always have rescue birds and rescue dogs. And when I moved out on my own, there was like a neighborhood cat, like in the apartment complex I lived in, which was next to the stadium. Um, there was like some neighbor's cat, and he always just came in and hung out. And what's crazy was I was severely allergic to cats growing up. So that's why we never had cats. And we couldn't go to people's houses that had cats, like parents' friends' houses that had cats, because I would immediately, as stepping in, eyes red, itchy, scratchy, sneezing, like full on, like immediate. But this cat would come over, and I think it was maybe just because I had just moved out and I'd never moved out before. It was like living on my own. And so it was a friend, and so I just take allergy pills, and I would have to take allergy pills like every day because it was horrible allergies. But like he just kind of hang out with me, and I named him Winston. Actually, his full name was Jack Winston Churchill. Um, and I remember like the neighbors would like come knocking at my door all the time. They're like, "Can we have our cat, please?" And I'm like, "I don't have your cat." They're like, "He's on your balcony outside right there. Can we have him back?" And like he'd like climbed the outside of the building to get onto my balcony. And I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." Um, so after that, like after and then the neighbors just like gave up. They really tried, like the cat just liked hanging out with me. He was just happy hanging out with me. And they just were like, cool, you could just hang out with the cat. But then I kind of became a cat person because he was like a Maine Coon. So he wasn't like a little cat. He was like this big giant cat. And I like big things. Like I like big dogs, like big cats. It was like really, really cool. But that's kind of um like I said, every animal that I've ever had, like I've spent hours just staring at them and watching them. And they all have their own personality. Like I had one that taught itself how to play catch. Like and Chuck Morris, like I don't even know how that happened. Like one day, like like Chuck Morris like brought a mouse, like not a real one, like a fake one, and we threw it, and he brought it back and dropped it. And we're like, whoa, that's something. Threw it again, came back. We're like, Chuck Morris, you're so smart. You like figured out like a game. And then we kind of did tell the other ones that they were good for nothing, lazy freeloaders. That like, what are you guys good for? What's your thing? Aside from that, yeah, they're all different. I think every animal's different. Have you ever had an animal in your life that was kind of a dick?
Not that I've been owned by. They've all been, you know, good creatures. I think my grandfather used to breed budgies and canaries. Some of those were little fuckers sometimes. The way they could really bite.
Yeah.
Have you ever been bitten by a budgie?
Oh, daily.
Yeah,
We
but
have
so
we
much
have
so.
7 budgies here, and they're I didn't buy a single one.
Yeah, but just some of those, just the way they dig into the skin and they
Yeah,
don't
just
let
like
go.
a
But yeah, and you're shaking your hand and they're just not coming off.
yeah.
So yeah, that's my nearest experience to dickish animals.
It is funny that birds are. I think that birds are very dickish creatures. And it's funny because at the flip side, you see a lot of these cases of birds having um their partner. They mate for life. And I'm like, that's very sweet. You see so many birds that mate for life. And I see the budgies that I have, like the couple, and you could tell the couples, right? I could tell the couples. And I think, oh, they're really lovely because, they look after each other. And, well, actually, there's only one couple. It's the mom and the dad. And they were like, Mango came. I found her in the yard without a beak. I mean, she was near death, and it like took forever to, get her to eat. Like I had a syringe feeder because she couldn't, being a budgie, she needs that beak to break open seed. And
Yeah,
so not having a top beak, she couldn't eat. So like I had to feed her with a syringe, and I don't know what her story was. Like I don't know the trauma of what happened to her before. So I don't mind her biting because she's been through some stuff. But um once then we adopted um another one, and they just, that I didn't know that they would have babies. And then they had some babies, and then strangely enough other budgies. Then I learned how to make it stop because I'm like, how do I make it stop? How do I stop making babies? And I thought stupidly, if you put a house in there, like I thought, oh, they could go hang out at the house. If they have something to make a nest in, they will have babies. If there's
yes,
no cages and stuff, or no how, like no homes or nest making things, they don't generally. But like just a couple of weeks ago, a budgie spawned into the yard, and I thought it was one of ours at first that got loose, and he wouldn't leave the yard.
yeah.
And I sat there and I'm like, what are the chances that a budgie would just spawn into my yard, find, a whole bunch of other budgies, and now he lives with them. And this budgie is also a special needs budgie. It's like a handicapped budgie. His legs, his feet were born all wrong, like one leg. So it's the best place for him to show up here because he'll get love, he'll get everything, he'll get food. But like, I ask people all the time, I'm like, does this happen to you? It's like, I open the door, like there's an animal at work, like at work. It's the same. And people at school like didn't believe it. They were just like, how many animals just like collapsed in front of the library? So it's just like, what is that? Like, is this what do you have you ever experienced things like that? Like a constant, you're finding tons of animals
Not
in your
constantly.
yard, at your house.
It's happened to me, and I've looked after them, but certainly not on your scale. Do you think it's anything to do with the energies and the waves that you were talking about earlier?
I had a friend, Nina, and she was the first person that said something to me about it. Because I kind of had a similar conversation with her after, like I found something. There was like something I found at school, and she's like, have you ever looked into like, I think it's like people with high frequencies, like high frequency energy. And I looked into it, and there was like this whole rabbit hole of, they were talking about people with high frequencies tend to generally attract children, attract animals, like all these things that it said. And I'm like, oh, tick that. I could tick that off. I could tick that off. And I think it would be this very similar for you as well. It's just like, oh, I could tick that off, tick that off. So I don't know. I mean, I haven't looked into it enough to see if there's been like serious studies into it. But to me, from what I've seen of energy, and just like I said, that one thing with the frequency experiment where the steel balls didn't move unless it got the right frequency. I see that to me is scientific evidence of, okay, frequencies can affect things differently. So when I think of that, I think it's, is it plausible that we are emitting different frequencies? And I say yes, right? And maybe that's a little bit of Occam's razor, like all things being equal, the simplest answer tends to be maybe the path, right? Um, but we also talk about feeling energies of people, like maybe not something, a frequency that we can hear, but certainly I think a lot of people, and not everybody can, not everybody can sense energies of other people, but a lot of people can. And if a lot of people can, possibly animals can. I would venture to say that animals definitely can. So maybe that's a thing. But the next question I would have is, how strong then is the frequency we're emitting. Because if animals are collapsing in front of the library or animals are collapsing outside of my door, but I'm inside when that happens, how is that? Is it the frequency getting out, or is it something else where other animals are like, yeah, that house there, that 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 girl over there, she's crazy, she'll hook you up. Like
Yeah.
it's go there.
Word
Like
of
is it
mouth.
is it that? Yeah. Is it word of mouth? Like do I have some kind of like recommendation on TripAdvisor? Like
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, that's the house, 4 stars. Like that's those are the things that I contemplate a lot.
Yeah.
I wish I had answers to because I've got so many answers of this, or so many questions for the cosmos, you know?
Yeah.
And what's crazy is that we'll probably never have that answer, will we? And I just have to accept that. I will never know. How do the animals know this?
Yeah. But you know that they do.
We
And
just know that they
that
do, but there's no
and that means
definitive
something.
answer, right?
Yeah.
But it's something that can completely drive me crazy because it's like, I'll never have that. And I understand a lot of astrophysicists that talk about multiverses and um, time paradox and things like that, where they talk about it. The science is so exciting, but something that frustrates some is that they feel that they might die never knowing the answer. And it's kind of like that. I'm going to die never knowing. Is it a frequency energy thing, or is there some kind of underground bird network or animal network thing where they're like, yeah, that house, TripAdvisor, go. We
Well,
give them a
I
good
think if
rating.
it's something that can never be answered, maybe you need to choose the answer that makes you happiest and assume that's the one that's true.
That's a good way of looking at it.
And
Okay, then I'm gonna go for the underground network.
yeah, I was going to say that. That'd be a cool way.
I would that would be cool. Like,
All these different animals communicating and recommending.
you know what's cool is walking in my neighborhood and running into a pigeon, and I'm like, I know you. We look at each other and we're like, we know each other. You know. I told you the other day there was one that me and my son call Grace because it's a beautiful looking bird and it's very graceful. And Grace had gone away for like we didn't see Grace for like a week, and we were almost mourning Grace. Like, oh, that's sad. Like I hope nothing's happened to Grace. And we were driving through our neighborhood and saw Grace getting fed by some other person in the neighborhood. And I literally rolled down the window and just said, traitor, like to a pigeon, right? Like far away. Like it was probably like 30 feet away from me. Not that she could hear, but I was hoping that Grace could sense my disdain and energy. Like,
Your
we were worried
disappointment.
about you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were worried about you. And how dare you not show up? And you're out here you're cheating on us, getting food someplace else. Like, but it it's nice though. I like it. I like walking through the neighborhood going, yeah, I know that bird. Even this morning when mom went outside and I went to go chase her down for a second, there was a pigeon in the road and she was just like, shoo, shoo. I'm like, oh, I know that one. He's just old. And she's like, God, get rid of him. And I picked him up and he's now in the backyard, like getting looked after. But it's kind of nice. And I'm like, these aren't animals that I raise myself. They're just earthlings, but I know this one's old. He's
Yeah.
okay. He's just old and he's blind and he keeps walking into traffic because his eye's not very good. And so it's just kind of like I just pick him up and I move him like, you need to stay over here.
Yeah.
But again, that's the stuff that makes me go, wait, maybe it supposed to be his fate that he gets run over? I don't want to be like, you'll
I,
understand this thing
I
living
know,
in
but
Asia.
I think if you look at the other side of that, if you stood there and watched him walk into traffic and get smashed to pieces,
Yeah.
would you think at least I didn't play God?
And see, I do the same thing though with the snails. I moved a couple of snails off the street this morning. I'm like, you guys are in the wrong place. And then I thought, maybe he was on some epic journey. You know, maybe he's going to Moldor, throw some ring into some fire. Like, feel like I want to help. Like you know,
But isn't that the Buddhist way?
Yeah, there's a thing I have. It's really cool. It's a scroll that I got when I did the my first Musicians for Free Tibet um, concert series, and it was given to me by the head of the umbrella network for the all the different Tibet organizations, like including like Richard Gere has a Tibet organization, but she was like the head of the umbrella group of all those things, and she gave me this scroll, and it says, "We are on this planet, um, 99 to 100 years." It's saying it's like we should do our best to help all living creatures,
Yeah,
and it stuck with me. It's just like, and it doesn't say help everybody, help people, like just so I do. Like we live in the same hood, we live in the same planet. You live on my house, like we're neighbors. You know, um, it's just it's just the way it is. What's your view on pigeons? Are they pests or are they just, are you indifferent to pigeons?
slightly indifferent. When I was younger, I did rescue one. There was one that was attacked by a cat, I think it was.
Oh,
So me and my friend chased the cat away, but the pigeon was quite badly damaged. So I took it to my granddad's house, um, and he had all the cages with the budgies and the canaries and the finches and all the different birds, and we set up a little hospital cage in there. But it made it through the night, but no more. But in
it's
hindsight,
hard.
yeah, in hindsight, I'm not sure if it was this. It's not libelous because my granddad's no longer here. I I wouldn't have put it past him to put the pigeon out of its misery. Now, if the pigeon was in pain, I think he would have done
Yeah,
that.
I think that it's tough when people lose animals. I had a friend that recently lost their best friend, you know? Um I think it's a pain that I don't think that time, I think it transcends time. Like I lost my baby boy, a long time ago. And yet, 15 years it's been. Um, that it's still fresh. I could still, cry about it in a second.
Yeah,
Um, and I think that that's a beautiful thing, though, the relationship that people can have with animals. And that's the thing that kind of, and my friend just lost his best friend. He had to put him down um, about a week ago. And I said, I think that that's the one thing that we could take away from all that that's really beautiful is that lovely bond that surpassed everything, that transcends everything between interspecies bond. That's the beautiful thing, right?
yeah,
And I know, like, just like you've lost animals, I've lost animals, in the course of our friendship, you and I have both lost animals. And the thing that kind of gets me through it is just knowing I know that they knew they were loved.
yeah,
That's the thing that helps me more than everything else because I know that when I'm crying I'm crying because I feel sad that they're not here, so it's like a selfish cry, like I want to hold them. And I know, and then I remember even my son saying, but what are you crying for? I'm like, I wish I could hold them and stuff, and I wish that that they knew they were loved. And he's like, dude, are you crazy? He's like, how do you think they not know how that they were loved, right? How could they not know that they were loved? And it's like, yeah, you're right, they knew. And so I think that that's the beautiful thing that, I was telling my friend Matt and said, your boy, he knew, that you loved him. And I think that it's like somebody says, it's something that hurts, but is that ever going to stop you from having an animal again as
yeah,
much as it hurts?
yeah. I think you're right. There's a huge bond that's just so many emotions. And a lot of it's love, but there's so much trust as well. I find the amount of trust that my dogs have for me is just overwhelming.
Yeah.
If I take them to the vet, for example, um, if they can see me, they don't panic. as long as I'm in their line of sight, they're okay.
Yeah.
And if they can't see me, they, especially Panda, he'll just start thrashing around, going wild. And it reminds me of the scene in Star Wars where Luke Skywalker goes to put the handcuffs on Chewbacca,
Yeah.
and Chewbacca just goes wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So Han Solo has to do it, and that's how I feel with my animals. That I'm like, oh, yeah, wow, the perfect T-shirt.
It's
That's
a perfect t-shirt. That's just
yeah,
my,
that's
it's my favorite. It's one of my favorite t-shirts.
that's how it makes me feel. That okay, even this huge. I know Panda's not a huge beast, but this animal that's afraid and just acting out of impulse is okay with me. Not
Yeah.
anyone else, but as
Right.
long as he has his human with him, he's okay.
Yeah. That's like a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I think that that's the one takeaway that you can, on such a horrible, horrible loss, that's the one thing that kind of gets you not necessarily over that loss, but it helps carry you. Just
Yeah,
knowing that at least they knew. It's like even that the pigeons up there, the ones, a lot of them know when they're in the cage. I think some of them know, okay, I'm probably going to die. She's putting me in the cage. A lot of other ones. Some of them make it. Some, you know, I think Angus and I sussed it out. We have like a 40% success rate of they get better and go, but a lot, do pass away. But I hope that they didn't feel alone.
yeah,
If they didn't necessarily, maybe it's not long enough that they feel love, but they feel some kind of safety, like this one with the neurological problem right now, which I have to help hold its head down. Like, I hope it knows that I'm trying. And I hope that somehow in that little pigeon brain, there's some comfort to him or her.
yeah. Well, I'm sure there's the minimum is there's physical comfort because without
Yeah.
your intervention, they'd be physically uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think mental comfort will come from the physical comfort. That will make
Yes.
the pigeon will be more at ease, more relaxed, less in pain, more nourished.
Uh, Getting back to Han Solo, I just have to ask you a question because you asked me the other question, but I didn't hear your answer.
Okay.
Um, who shot first?
um, well, you know the reason I asked it, right? Because there's
No, I don't.
so many different changes and varieties. There's so many versions that George Lucas kept doing. And in the first one, it was Han Solo that shot first in the original cut, and then he changed it because he didn't want Han Solo to seem like an evil character. But yeah,
Was it is that the case though?
yeah,
Is it
I thought
Was that
so.
the case that he changed it?
Yeah, he changed it at least three times.
So I remember reading something, um, and I want to think that it was him quoting as saying it something that they asked him, and he just said, "Of course, Han shot first," and that, but he defended it by saying that you know you gotta we all love the character of Han, right? But Han wasn't like the most upstanding guy.
Well, he was
So
a survivor, and he was doing what he needed to do. And it's not as if he was in the nicest place. He was just taking
yeah,
care of himself. But yeah, I
so
definitely
it
think he
seemed
shot first.
so from what I recall, and I don't know because it's been so long, right? It's been so many years since this came out. So there's been different points that he could have had a different something different to say. Like when we hear clips now, a lot of times people don't date the clips. So it's completely taken out of context because you don't know if it was before or after this film was released, before or after he was taken out of the Star Wars universe. Um, but I remember him saying with such, fervor, yeah, of course, Han shot first. So I was wondering, was it really his decision to make it so that Greedo shot first in some of the other George Lucas edits, or was it pressure
Yeah.
from whatever? Because in that other, like I said, and I don't know if the interview that I saw was before or after, but it was just, he was like, of course he shot first. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it is. He's a cowboy. He just shot and got on with his life. You know, threw the money
Um,
on the table and left. That's
there's a poster in my son's room. It's a Han poster, and it says, "I'm all about the money." And also in that room, because that's like a Star Wars museum in there, but we have that whole scene. We have all the characters. We actually have the bar, the Mos Eisley bar. We
yeah.
have the bartender. We have Greedo. We have all that to reenact that specific scene. There's like a lot of, he's got this bookcase, and so the bookcase has squares. So some of the squares are just dedicated to a specific scene, which is really cool. So there's
Yeah.
like one scene where all the squares are like different colors, but there's an odd square that's all white. So that depicts the scene from the start of Empire Strikes Back. So that's really cool. So you've got
Yeah.
there's a tauntaun on there, and Luke's on the tauntaun, and then you've got so that's, and it just happened to be all white. So that's what that one is. It's
Yeah.
really cool. And now I probably need to disown my son, because he's just like, he wants to disband the Star Wars stuff.
Give
And
him
I
time.
get it.
He'll come round. Just
I get it, but it's just like, what?
yeah.
What are you talking about? Disband? He's like, well, mom, I'm going to put like this here and that. And I get it, because he's a teenager, but it's like, what?
Might have to
So now,
find a new room for him, not for the Star Wars stuff.
yeah, so now that's like on the top of my list. I'm going to make a mom cave. That's going to be my mom cave, and it's going to have all my Star Wars. I'll just pay him off for it. Like, here, and it's funny because I'm, I think that, uh, I think that a lot of parents probably do. Maybe it's just me. But it can't be me. But as a child, like, I remembered like asking for stuff, and it was just like, no, you're not going to get that. Right? It's too expensive, too whatever. Because I mean, we weren't like super rich, right? Like, we had a pretty average income. So I didn't get the Millennium Falcon when I was a kid. I didn't get the giant at, which I really wanted the giant at. So when my kid was still in my belly, I was already like, I was buying books. I was already buying him books. I like was already buying, like, he had a whole library. Like, when he popped out, there was already a library here for him. Like, because that's what I had access to. Like, I had access to books all the time. So I thought that was really important. But I also bought him like the vintage Millennium Falcon, the one that I wanted, that some guy had in a box that he didn't touch, and it was in an attic for years. And I bought it and had it shipped here. And this thing is massive. It is like a, a meter wide, right? Like 3 feet wide. It's got also like, and you can open it inside, and it is exactly modeled after the Millennium Falcon. There's even the access panels where they hide for
Yeah.
smuggling. That's all in there. So it's cool to like visualize. And I had it forever. And what was really funny was that, like, and you've met my best friend Stevie, my friends Stevie and Craig were just like coming over, like, hey, can we play with this stuff? And this is when Angus was like still a toddler. I'm like, I haven't even officially given it to Angus yet. They're like, yeah, but can you open it? And can we, they'd always go in there like, can we play with the at? It's just like, I haven't even like, he's like, and so when my son turned 7 is when I did the big reveal surprise, like the whole thing, the whole shebang, like, of Star Wars stuff. There's like it's like, it looks like a Star Wars thing in there. And what's funny, it was just like my grown ass friends are the ones that always like, can we go play in it? and so like they get how I feel, like, because that's what I want. I wanted him to have those things that it like with the whole music thing, it's different. Like I don't know if it was the same for you, but for us, a lot of times they might have had it like in when I was a kid, department stores were big on sending the department store catalogs, the Christmas catalog.
Yeah, yeah,
Harrods must have had something, or Marks and Spencer must have had something similar. But you would go to the big J.C. Penney or Sears catalog and you'd flip to the toy section.
yeah.
And that was like a dream because then you had all the Kenner stuff. And so that's what like I want that circle, like you circle it, leave it around to give hints like this is what I want, and didn't get it right. So as I got older, I'm like, now I got money, I got a job, I'm gonna buy all this stuff. That's what I spent doing. Like I was just like and I remember some of my friends being like, are you buying it for him or are you buying it for you? I'm like, does it matter? Does it even matter? But yeah, now he wants to pack it up, move it away. So I'll be getting a new son.
Oh, can I share?
Yeah.
Is
Say
it
hi.
gonna disrupt this?
No, we're almost done.
Hi, Mr. Desmond.
He's here.
Hi, Angus. How are you?
Oh, these headphones are pretty good.
Aren't they nice? They're Logitech.
Yeah.
And you know what I like about them? They kind of have that like the colorful like vibe of sayonara
These
cupcake.
are mine.
Yeah,
Oh,
this has made me quite happy to replace the Remax ones.
Yeah.
I should have unboxed it, talked about it more, tagged Logitech so they'll send us more free ones.
I love those unboxing ads.
Because I'll be happy to just send us free mics. I'll be happy to unbox it. Send us free stuff. I'm totally down with that.
Need to make a
Right
list of
now,
what we want. Yeah.
I need a mixer. So just putting that out there. And the reason I want a mixer is I just want to have weird sounds. That's really all. There's one that said like you could do voice changing, and I don't know why you would need to change your voice, like unless you want to go, this is the voice of God.
Well, there is. I've seen it's a YouTube channel. I haven't watched it for a while, but it's about all these phone call scams.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
they call from one of the countries over here in Asia, but usually they call to older people in the US, sometimes Australia, and they've got a scam where they get them to go to Target or Amazon somehow to buy.
Mhm.
So basically what they do is they get on this old person's computer remotely, and then they make it look like they've accidentally transferred too much to this old person, and then they want the old person to send money back to them, but they don't want them to transfer it back. They want them to send it back as Amazon gift cards or Target or whatever the gift card is. So these old people go out and they drive in their cars to Target, CVS, wherever, and then they try and buy gift cards. So this YouTube channel, it's a guy who's trying to put an end to that, and he tries to intercept things, but he uses this voice changer, and he pretends to be an old woman. So when they call him, person who's trying to initiate the scam thinks that the YouTuber is an old woman, and he just keeps them on the line for so long, and he frustrates them by pretending not, I don't know how to spell that, or by deliberately putting the wrong screen on, while at the same time he's getting access to their computer. So he's getting all their details that he can provide to the police. Sometimes that's quite emotional because he'll catch somebody mid-scam. He'll find out where this old person is driving to, whether it's a bank or a shop, and he'll actually call the store and say, there's an old person in there, they're going to try and buy $500 worth of gift cards. Do not let them, it's a scam.
That's sad.
Yeah. So he uses a voice changer for that, and he pretends to be this old Southern lady who, just, let me go and just wash my hands first, dear, and then I'll come back. And is it okay if I talk with Marjorie for a while?
I had a person for that. I used to love getting like telemarketing calls. So I had a character that for years, and I've had friends over while I do these characters because I love it. In the States, we get a lot of like telemarketer calls. My character's name is Junko, and Junko is an old Japanese woman whose English isn't great, and she repeats things often. I loved Junko. Like Junko was awesome.